Welcome back to my lovely HP community and the 5D Collective. For any of you who regularly tune into our episodes, we have a channeled guidance on the Spotify for Creators, iHeartRadio. It won't be on YouTube. And for those of you who are here, welcome aboard. Here is 5D Mystic, spiritual self-help, mindful mentor, content creator, and somebody who supports those who want to live mindfully and spiritually. So you do enjoy depth of emotional, mental, and physical plane, and you want to be able and be non-reactive. If not, then you don't want to be self-empowered or enlightened, and that's okay, because we got plenty of people who are choosing to have rigid demands, be unforgiving in their tones, also in their decisions, and therefore stay with their emotionally charged adaptive child adult, the teenager version. Okay, so I made a short where you heard about that. For them, they're building true relationships. For those of us who are being ourselves with love, not really, but yeah, they are, because love is unconditional. So while some people only hold accountable parents, Patrick Tian, my parents did the best they could, he scratched out. They refused to look at themselves. I'm going to say, well, Patrick, all people who have any kind of adaptive child rigidity refuse to look at themselves and go and get real so that they can become functional adults and get out of unforgiveness, harshness, rigidity, and really get out of their non-bilaterally integrated brain, which is also structurally dissociated with cognitive dissonance. So, I mean, really, we don't need to tell parents alone, hey, you don't know how to use your nervous system. Kids, learn how to use. So, this is what the black and white thinking, all or nothing, the rigid statements, they don't lead anywhere, which is why we're talking about true relationships, which is where it's about us being able to be grown-ups, functional adults, parents included, and forgiveness is of the 5D Collective. I forgot to mention Jesus and Holy Spirit and God, although not everybody with cloaks enjoys me since I'm a 5D mystic. Forgiveness is number one on the table. You don't want it, you don't have to do it, but I am a person who explains that this is not a word. It is the capacity for you to process and transmute from the heart that which takes place from the mind, and therefore thoughts and emotions are thoughts and emotions. Your ego does not rule you. Your 3-year-old is yours, and the 3-year-old is uncharged. And your 16-year-old isn't ruling you. That's why you're mindfully living. So in focused attention, you get aware, you have the capacity not only to contain, but also to observe, witness, and say, I want love. I choose love. I don't choose to stay in a visceral and modulated. That's why you don't have to stick around. You still got time. You can go somewhere else. People think secure attachment is boring. It's by far boring. I love to love, and my baby, he loves to laugh, and he loves to learn, and he loves to love, and he loves to expand, and he loves to not cast stones. So you know what happens when anybody does a 360 on me? I don't say anything, thanks to my facade friend. And thanks to me knowing I'll process it, it's okay. Because I got rejected at 4, and then I got disowned at 8. Thanks, twin. And I got told it's not true, and I know it's not true, so she actually can't disown me. And I'm sure I teased her about it too. So I have a twin again. I got lucky, got a mom who taught me equanimity. As Rick Hansen, PhD, points out, a lot of people underestimate the gradual impact of little things adding up over time in your childhood. Determined, come on in, Robert Sapolsky. My adding up consistently maintained a whole 3-year-old heart with a differentiated self. And that's because at 3 I said, you can't spank me. It's my body. And as Dr. Daniel Siegel informed me, that's really good, Maria. You are already a differentiated self. I love Dr. Dan. And I didn't know what that meant. And when I went to look it up, I'm like, yep. So that means that Maria has her own thoughts and her own feelings independently from the primary caregiver. Oh, and it's not done. She was done spanking me for whatever silly shit I did. And I went to make my suitcase, which shows my personality and my temperament. And again, my secure attached 3-year-old said, you didn't listen to me. And so now I'm going to leave, which also shows that I'm not afraid to live without my primary caregiver. Or even if I'm afraid, I'm not afraid enough to where I'm not going to make a statement, but I had somewhere to go. That's why I had another attachment figure. I'm pretty sure I was thinking I could go to grandma, and I didn't go anywhere. And in the meantime, what did my twin do? My twin went and hugged her at the leg. Mommy, I will never leave you. And we don't know why that happened. It could be to make sure the big person knows I'm on your side. Pick me. Don't throw me into the fishies. Or because, oh, let me make it better. Okay? And that's because motivation is different for every one of us. So we can have bonding and self agency and certainty. My dominant ones, their certainty and self agency. I'm a scaredy cat and I'm a 3 year old and a self. And the bonding one is here. And yes, I'm a very straight shooter. Okay, so when you're a straight shooter means I just tell you what I think and I tell you what I feel, and there you go. And I'm also very literal. So you know yourself when you are your whole self and you have a good time. So we don't actually go and tell the adaptive child people, whether they're parents or not, what to do with their dysregulated modulated nervous system. 5D collective, we do us, they do them. 3D 4D is going to stick around. I told you this in our channeled guidance messages, I think. So for us, instead, it's if you gain a little more mastery over your mind, body, and life energies, which basically means your entire nervous system and your whole self. You have a whole self. That's when you're going to have the life energy. I know all about it. Thanks, Sadhguru. You can become the master of your destiny. Yes, so he uses words. I use explanation for the self-help personal development people who will do it, not the Zen master who says, I know when I do laundry. Okay, great. So anytime you don't do emotions, you don't want to be here, because we do thoughts are thoughts, emotions are emotions. We got to have a good time. Oh, but we have a relationship with all 6 basic. So some people, they need to get those emotions first online. They'll know if they're disconnected because each and every one of those emotions is kind of like there but not there. And then they're like, I don't know when I get angry what happens. So it's important first to get sensory motor somatics and EMDR and child parts work. And that's for anybody who doesn't know how to handle gooey ooey ooey yet. I'm not joking, because as long as you have laundry like the Zen master, it's best for you to go to therapy, because you got a window tolerance to that. You're using your temporal junction and ruminating. As Tara Brach in her video, she presents, the way that you get out of it is by bringing your prefrontal cortex down. You use your compassionate brain. He doesn't know how to even put into practice kind intention, but I know why, because he's judging humanity and he's saying they're all dying. Now, I don't judge, but I've cried for humanity. Don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is, I've never been to Argentina, but what God told me is to leave alone human suffering and to not judge it and to not cry for it. And every time he's saying, I was like, but I'm still sad, because I kept seeing the baby cry. So when you know that in every person, we all have our 0-1-year-old and they're attached panicky, that's why the Zen master hasn't claimed his full-on independence yet, because he doesn't know how to do, hey, secondary consciousness. So Marcus Aurelius told me, why worry about something that we can't do anything about? If death is darkness, like it is when we're waking up or when we're sleeping, excuse me, well, it is what it is. You won't know when you die. And that was when I was a kid. And Marcus Aurelius told me, yeah, Maria, why worry about something? I said, you know what, you're right. Because I would wake up and cry. Because I'm like, I don't want to forget everybody. I don't want to, I don't want it to be that. Anyways, long story short, let's get back to our topic as I share this and that. And also important fun facts about how to use your mind. Thank you again, Sadhguru. Again, master your destiny right here. So when you're master of your destiny, you have your whole feminine and your whole masculine, and that's why with our twin flame and or flames, we don't have any kind of saga. It's more of, I'm a choice point, and so are you. Oh, and with our oversoul in its entirety. Our choice point is that we trust because we love. So even if you break my trust and you betray me, like the teenage boyfriend and my BFFF and other people, I won't be like, all human beings are untrusting. No, and my facade friend showed me just how much people don't know how to be flags with flag posts. So when it happens, because it always happens at some point or another, that a person shows their true colors, the adaptive child part, their rigidity, their harshness, their unforgiveness, the fact that they don't have your back for real, that they're just pretending. Because, when you see men in a group of men, and then women in a group of women, and then people in a group of theys, that's when you're going to notice if you have a person who has integrity. And if they know how to be non-reactive, which means they know how to be smart, which is what I look for when I think of any person who thinks of themselves as smart. You use both sides of the brain. You don't bring in your emotional charges, project them at anyone. And if you're limiting conversation to 2 sides alone, or just anything that is basically right or wrong, I'm not high on the emotional, mental, or physical intelligence scale. So I'm going to leave it alone, because I'm afraid of men and women in days that I don't respect. I respect them as people. I don't respect their intellect, because half a brain isn't a whole brain. So I can't respect half information that is also tainted by your own emotional charges that you don't want to notice, and then create what is a valuable conversation so that we can just talk about it, because you can't, because your 3-year-old is ruling you and your 16-year-old. your fight response. So really, I'm talking to a dumbed down version of you anyways, because once you begin to get into your fight response, your brainstem is activated. You're going to be using, what was it? Russell Coates said it. Yeah, stereotypes, generalizations. It's going to be very clear. You're going to start picking the very data that you assimilated from yesterday's news, and you're going to line it up. And it's kind of like being in a field with people who are all, as long as your brain is geared to being scared that somebody's going to hurt you, you are always on the defensive. And so Bezo van der Kolk MD, people who begin to get into their ego, they get defensive. For a person who's intellectually interested in intelligence, I don't have interest in talking to an ego. I let the ego talk because I know the 3-year-old wants the room and the 16-year-old knows everything. And I'm actually curious because I can't remember everything. And so that makes it for a good conversation. So true relationships is when, one, you can be yourself with love. Otherwise, you're not building a genuine connection. 2, you're not afraid of heartbreak because really, come on, it's a heart. You know forgiveness. That means you know how to be a big 1-year-old. Not because your 1-year-old feels big. Our child parts, they stay in the very same age that they will be felt. I have confirmation with courses, but on my body. So when my 1-year-old, she wants a hug. My 3-year-old, I've now identified them. If my 16-year-old, she's actually quite the talker. The 16-year-old is, yep, no. So here's where we all will have had the black-white thinking because we all were teenagers and adolescents. Then you grow out of it if you are a person who does love to love, live, laugh, learn, expand, and forgive like Jesus taught me. You don't have to believe in Jesus or Holy Spirit or believe in anything, even though it's a part Jesus did exist, although I have people informing me of this information. So please, I'm stupid when it comes to remembering data, and also there's a lot of things online, and I get lost and frustrated like a little kid. I have my data people that I check things with. I'm pseudoscience lady, and the data that I bring is for personal development. History, not great. Even the, quantum physics I try to remember, and the, space science, okay? But let's remember. So anyways, in our relationships, what's fun about being your whole self is that you get to have a good time. And when you're around people who don't want to be their whole self, it's okay because you get to know their teenager. And that's about it. They have other soul age groups out there. I'm in the enlightenment one. So 5D mystic or not, even 4D mystics are fun. I know plenty of them. And mindfully 5D or not, what I want to continue for a little bit more on is when you're genuine, you're not going to turn your back on somebody. And so you will consistently have their back. I will tell you when I think that you've been a person who has been unnecessarily rude. So for me though, unnecessarily rude, I will have to see you do something really big. And probably it won't be anything that I would mention because I learned to mind my own business. And so as long as you're not physically affecting somebody, then I will probably not necessarily, you see what I'm getting at. What I'm trying to say is if I speak up, it will be because of an opinion that is really strong, but really there's not strong opinions when you accept that everybody has where they come from and what they want to say. With family, it's different because my mother, my twin, my immediate, because I was raised with them, right? So I'm a child with them. So we have a whole dynamic when we're having debates or when we don't want to have debates. and so I'm saying extended family, for me, it's easy to leave alone things as I got older. Not when I was a teenager, but as I got older, yes. And so you will not hear from me necessarily how you should or could or would or does. But if I do see you do something that is not nice, I will say it if you're a good friend of mine because I know that we have that relationship. Okay, so when I see things that don't go well, meaning people who judge and cast stones, my immediate family, they always know what I think. And that's why sometimes I try to back off so that they can share their opinions. But I don't do characterological distinctions and judgments, although I do have opinions. Which is why my loved ones, some of them will say, but you do have strong opinions. I'll say, yes, Maria, I share them with you all, but it's not right or wrong. Okay, so words to me don't matter, but if I have to explain something, I can explain it to the best of my ability. Other people, they're very and only linear. I'm not that. I'm a little roundabout. I'm in fact not linear at all. And what you'll find is that the people who are very linear, they're using the left mode and they're not balancing their right. And that's actually because they don't tend to work together. You're the one who can get your two sides of the brain to work together, and mindfulness practices help you with that. So it's when you allow yourself to pause, focus attention, to breathe, to calm your body down, and to begin interacting in a conversation from a place that is at ease. And that's number one, I guess, of sharing this. It means it, but there you go. People don't like it. They want, like that lady, they're trying to imprison us. It's not true that it's inherently healthy to be non-reactive or enlightenment. And it's like, yeah, it is actually, because your body's in a restorative embodiment and your brain's in the prefrontal, and that's because you're practicing it. She's not. She doesn't want it. So do a lot of other people who think that I talk about only one emotion. What they don't understand is it's amazing when you're in the love, oxytocin gene hormone, your body's in eustress, not distress. So it's unfortunate for the people who don't understand what they would benefit from getting out of their pissy little 3-year-old. And a limited consciousness 16-year-old, by the way, which really doesn't make for any interesting conversations if you ask a person who likes to have good conversations. And as long as they are open-minded, then it's going to be good. I definitely don't have the capacity to regurgitate, but I do have the capacity to like to talk. So with the story of my facade friend, what I wanted to use him for is because, see, he taught me how people can say they love you and they do mean it, but they don't actually have what you say to them dear to them. So they don't really let you be you, and they don't really listen to you. Okay, and so when that happens, doesn't mean the relationship isn't a true one, but for those of us who are with integrity and who know how to be our whole self and the depth of you is there, you're going to find that, and then you're going to learn. I learned how to leave it alone every time it does happen. And just to know, I have a flag that has no flag post. Okay, so as long as you have a person who doesn't regulate into their functional adult, into their capacity to speak to you about thoughts, speak to you about feelings, speak to you from the heart, and then want to continue the relationship from the heart, which means they accept the differentiated self. So they don't make black or white statements. It's not all or nothing. And that's just in general, and that's a practice. You don't have to do it. But that's where the neutrality and duality and equanimity comes from, and that's where you're going to find people who enjoy each other and enjoy differences, and they don't, so there's that group of people, but we'll also continue to have the group like my friend. So with my friend, what happened was I had said to him when we made up as friends, all I am asking you is to be yourself. People who don't own their child parts and don't heal their child wounds, they don't know how to be their self the way that a person who knows how to consistently be the same presence is how I can bring it to you. And even here it gets complex. I'm just going to put it this way. If I tell you that I like you, I mean it. And if I tell you that I don't like you, I mean it. And if I don't want to hear something, I'll also tell you. And so I'm direct communicator. I don't hide any of it. Okay, so I don't allow you to talk my head off if I'm not interested or engaged, because that's going to be disrespectful in my personal opinion. So even if I might come off as rude, I will still let you know I'm not hearing you anymore, because I don't want to use your time that way. And I can't. Some people say you could force yourself. Well, I can't. And even if you don't believe me, you don't have to. But the part is that I will be authentic, genuine, and tell you the truth, and I won't hide it. And I won't hide it just because you might find it rude. So hiding your opinion, I guess I can bring it. This is where you find people that won't tell each other things for no other reason except they don't know how to have what is a honest conversation. My friend, I thought he got what I told him and that he was having honest conversations. I find out eventually that he doesn't know how to tell me that he doesn't believe in mysticism, God, So we had spent so much time talking about something that has no interest for him. So once I saw that, this was a second interaction, I got to yell at him, and I got to learn that I won't do that again. So he helped me learn how not to do any of what I did with him, with others, to be reactive, because of noticing, number one, his attitude of assholishness is because he's afraid of rejection. Number two, his incapacity to tell me everything is this political correctness bullshit that even if they don't call it political correctness, and it's just as bad as somebody saying, you asked me where I come from, how dare you, you're triggering anybody who wants to do any of that. I'm just, the only difference is, I'm so sorry. Wow, forgive me. What can I say? I'm so rude. So when I meet anxious, I know how to handle them. I'm much fonder of avoidance because at least they leave you alone and they don't come back. And anxious instead, they actively will not only be there, but then actually I got one Dude, this was amazingly not amazing. A professional. Yeah, I'm going to leave it alone. So when people don't have their child parts as grown-ups, yeah, you're going to know because they don't know how to handle a whole conversation or anything. My friend knows how to handle me. I know how to handle him. So thank goodness I got friends that are actual, so I do have them. But the point that I'm trying to make is when things like this, what he did come up, I don't do anything about it while with him. I did, but that's because I was unaware. I became aware thanks to him, and then attachment trauma educators inform me even more. So if you don't own your subconscious and conscious, and your child parts are not something that you've reparented, they come up because you have disowned parts and emotional charges, and so you do this black and white thinking or split thinking. It doesn't happen only to personality disorders. It happens to people who don't know how to work their emotional charges, and anything that will have taken place in your life can be a charge. And some people don't care to uncharge that. They are okay with that's why we have all these groups yelling at each other, right? So at the end of the day, with relationships, for those of you who are still here, mindfully living, loving people, we're not going to get in each other's faces. We're going to consistently stand down, and while some can say that's you being a scaredy cat, it's not because of that. It's because there's no need for me to take it to that level. There's no point in it. And it doesn't make for a conversation. Also, excuse me, there's a little bug. There's no need for splinters to be the end of a relationship or ruptures. In fact, I have plenty of other stories that you've heard of in the years. And so true relationships are where we accept each other for who we are. If you are a functional adult, then you're going to know and be here again because mindfulness practices and mindset and 5D is interesting to you. The collective of 5D use our entire brain. That's how I'm going to break it down. It's not a collective that exists in paper. I'm talking about our 5D collective here as a 5D mystic again, not stuck in stone. The frequency, the mindset, the integrated brain, and there's a lot more to the story, but not for today. For today, as I close on out, the truest of things that you will know are when you're building secure connections with people who you can welcome as they are, because you've welcomed who you are. And so by being yourself with love, you don't hold it against anybody if they do a 360 on you. My friend taught me how not to hold it against anybody in a way of thinking that they don't respect the relationship. However, Dr. Daniel Siegel and all the good therapists have shared with me how they're not building a genuine relationship. Because an insecure attachment human being has a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're only in a relationship based on their lack of authentic needs because they don't know them yet, because they don't know how to self-regulate. So I know that when I have an insecure human being, they don't know how to handle their ego. They don't know how to handle their emotion. They will be rude at some point, shape, or form, biologically rude, and they will not take ownership for it. And so while Patrick Tiahan, again, wants to tell us about how parents did the best they could, and he scratches this off and says they refuse to look at themselves, and I'm going to say every person who doesn't know how to handle life with forgiveness hasn't looked at themselves, which is actually how I feel about it completely, because they're casting a stone without ever once remembering, like my friend, that you don't walk one day in my body, one day in my head, and your emotional lack thereof, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is you feel or think does not have priority and over. No. And if you want to talk to me about a herd and our herd, then our herd, that's okay. Our herd's going to keep moving forward as we keep voting and keep doing things. So when people bring in some things, no society is in threat at this point in our time. Actually, we're transforming, we're updating, upgrading, or some would say we're not. I'm going to say we are, because there's more humanity, because the scientists know that there's goodness in every person. So the only ones who don't like to hear that are the same ones who I don't look at. I'll fear them, I won't respect them, and they won't know who they are, because they also lack the capacity to be intellectually, emotionally, and physically present, because they're reactive and defensive. So even if they can make up all the shit they think they're making up in their brain, the thing is they don't have the capacity to use their right. So they're not reading correctly, and they're reading based on a bad gut that picks up only on if I have some negative shit going on and negative potential thinking. And so when you meet a person who doesn't have negative shit or negative thinking, doesn't have any of that stuff, so yeah, you might pick up that This was Dr. Daniel Fox that actually shared that with me. Anyways, for another time. My point is that we're all readable, but the people who don't go and reclaim their childhood and don't go and work on themselves and don't go and help themselves to feel better and get better, they will typically, I've seen these 4D mystics think they know what they're reading and picking up on. I've had people say, I have clairs. I know what's going on with you. Yeah, I got clairs too. And no, you don't. You're whatever you're telling me, that's not at all what's going on with me. Stop invading my space and telling me that you know what's going on inside of me just because you have clairs, because that's the other part. Let me show you my tattoos. Let me let you know that I'm just like you. Anytime I meet a teenager in a room, I'm like, nobody asked you to be like me. Yeah, walk like me. That makes me think of the Jungle Boy with a monkey. So when you meet people who know how to stand as themselves, they don't change it up in a room. They don't change it with people. They don't. Yeah, there's a lot, but there's also heart. So the heart part is where you can't be open-hearted if you are defensive. If you don't have compassion, you're not going to know how to be open to the person in front of you. So whenever there's fears or anything coming up, that's the part of where processing it. So again, true relationships though are about us accepting each other. If you're empowered, you know how to make any relationship work because again, you don't have an ego that gets bruised. You don't have a heart that gets bruised. You're not afraid of love. You're not afraid of, people changing it up. Because really, we don't need people to have our back in the way that some people think. As kids, we might say stupid shit like that. And as kids make stupid decisions, which is why we want better grown-ups. But they're still going to make the stupid decisions. Adolescence. Eventually, you grow up. I chose my crew as soon as I noticed all these backstabbers, unkind people not keeping their words. And as I got older again, my friends, they all taught me how people who don't grow up, today they can say yes, tomorrow they can say no, today they're happy, tomorrow they're not, and that's how it works. So they can be a good or bad mood, and you just learn how to play with the wind. No, they're going to show you what the wind is. Also, they're a wheel. So eventually they're just kind of doing a specific pattern. We all are. The difference is from the inside, not necessarily the outside. And so once again, being yourself with love and building true relationships is really fun. We're of all types, all kinds. And here it's all about forgiveness and flexibility and functional adult conversations. So I look forward to being back with the topic and some more. Again, we have a channeled guidance. So if you'd like to go tune on into that one, that'll be, 40 minutes? I forget. But it has video on Spotify, not on the other audio podcast versions, but yes, on Spotify and maybe even for creators, Spotify. Anyways, thanks again for stopping by. We'll be back soon enough. Have a good one.